Hello there, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. James here as ever for today's critical video if you're doing the ACCA Performance Management or F5 exam. This is one of the ways that is critical to passing this exam, that is past papers, and as my channel is 100% student-led, Nada, I know you're out there, and thank you very much for leaving a comment in my previous video. And as you can see below me here, because I'm getting better at the editing now, the video is amazing, James. Nada, phew, I'm overwhelmed, but you did leave on there, I wish you did more videos about F5. Well, Nada, do not worry. I've got you on this. Today, I'm going to be going through, just for you, the actual March and July 2020 sample questions that you can get access on ACCA's website. I'll leave the actual link in the description to this video, and we're going to be going through some of the key aspects on there in terms of limited information, objectives, performance on there as well, balanced scorecards, and then identifying and justifying them as well in terms of performance measures. Everything that I'd be thinking about going through the question itself. If you are new to my YouTube channel, it is 100% student-led, so feel free to subscribe. The button will be at the bottom, so you get access to all of my free materials and the podcast, so you get to network with ACCA members from around the world. My name is James. I'm a qualified ACCA member, and the channel, as I said, is 100% student-led to benefit you. So feel free to leave any questions at the bottom, just like Nada. I'll get round to them. I answer absolutely every single one, and who knows, the next video could be dedicated to you. Well, without any further ado, all the introductions are done, I think it's time that we get stuck into this question. Make sure you've had a go beforehand and actually go and replay this video again in your revision. It is gonna help. This is critical to this exam. So, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, and go! So, you lucky people, let's get on with going through this past paper question now. As I said before, the actual document and the link so you can access it is in the description to this video, and this video is specific to scenario 2, and this is the Hammock Co question as well. I have done a video on scenario 1, it's also on my YouTube channel, so go check it out, attempt it beforehand, and then you can watch me walk and talk it through, just like Nada's query as well. And it will be really, really beneficial because it's a past paper analysis question as well. So this is the document that you should have in front of you now as well. And look at it, good grief, lots of information as ever. And there's scenario 1, like I said. Oh, already done that question, come on. But moving on to the critical scenario 2. And for those of you who have not done this question yet, I'm sure you're looking at this going, oh my word, James, there's quite a lot of information there. Oh, hang on, even more, and some requirements as well. Where's this sort of member experience and abundance of knowledge? How are we going to tackle this? Fear not, Nada. Fear not, everyone else as well. I'm going to walk and talk you through. But the first thing is, I'm at the bottom here, the important stuff's at the top, so make sure you've got pen and paper. Let's go through it, get those key notes down. First of all, when you ever have a question, you've got to go to the requirements first. That means that when we go through the actual question, you know what to be looking for, and I'm going to walk and talk you through what I thought when I read this question through first time. So this is what you can actually see on your screen. Well, come on, James, what have you got to show to help everyone? Would I let you down? Would I let you down? Well, first of all, we've got to go through the requirement and actually analyse this top to bottom as well. So first of all, coming on to part A, this is scenario 2 for the Hammock Co question as well, so make sure you don't get them mixed up. First one there, we've got, based on the limited information available, okay, straight the way I thought, we've got to refer to the scenario, and there's going to be some bits of information obviously we have got, and then some that we can maybe make some judgments on as well. We've got to discuss, and then the next key word was the performance of Hammock Co in light of its 2 existing objectives for 8 marks. Well, first of all as well, before we get going on this, if you're going to attempt these 2 times, you've got 14.4 minutes, so give or take 14 for part A. You've then got just over 5 minutes of part B for the first part on there, and you've got just over 16 for part 2 for B as well. This is worked out on 180 minutes in the exam divided by the 100 marks, so give or take, yes, I know as well you have a 15-minute reading time, but this is a really good indication because time management is critical to this exam. But coming back onto part A there, it actually referred to its two existing objectives and for 8 marks. So straight away I'm thinking there, well, it's going to be split 4 and 4. 4 marks for one objective we've got to talk about, and another 4 for another objective we've got to refer to. Linking it back to the scenario, discussing it, talking about performance, and hinting at limited information as well. That all comes from one sentence. This is the techniques that I want you to be picking up on. So let me roll it down as well so you can see it's a bit clearer. So part B, part I on here, explain 2, key thing on there, 2, you only answer 1, well, wave goodbye to some marks there. 2 advantages of Hammett Co's using the balanced scorecard approach to performance management. Okay, straight away, so I've got to make 2 points on there. I've got to be referring to the balanced scorecard approach and performance management. Is it having a positive or negative effect? So don't spend too long on that. We've only got to be writing maybe 3-4 sentences, I would say, but they've got to be good quality ones. That's the main thing. And then finally on to the last requirement. Notice as well how I've put a sort of 1 and 2 on the top of it. Really good exam techniques that you pick up on all of the requirement. So we've actually got to suggest, first key element, and then secondly, justify, okay? 1 goal and 2 performance measures for each of the 2 perspectives of the balanced scorecard which are not currently addressed. So if you actually refer to something that is currently addressed, well, nil point, no marks in terms of it. It's got to be not currently addressed by Hammett Co's objectives as well. So I've got a little note at the bottom there that in essence the sort of format that I'd be sort of thinking of if I was designing an answer for this is, well, we've got to, as I said, suggest, so pick out a topic area, then we've got to justify and write down what that one goal is from it. And then from that goal, well, actually say how we're going to measure it or quantify it or give it some sort of representation that we can say, well, are we in a better or worse position? That's the key thing here. Again, just over 16 minutes for the 9 marks. You've got to be really careful on time. I also have a study with me video on the actual channel as well, so you can actually study with me to time, hold yourself accountable, pop it on. That will really help you as well. And finally, it's 20 marks for the whole question, so 36 minutes in the real exam. Give it 35, give yourself a minute as well on it. Okay, so that is overall for the requirement. Key terms picked up on, so make sure you've got some notes down on that. But let's go back up now in terms of, oh, hang on, close your eyes, don't spoil the fun. In terms of the actual question analysis. So if you need to take a screenshot or photograph or anything like that, I really don't mind, whatever's going to help you. But these are the key things in scenario 2 for Hammett Co's question that I picked up on from my experience as a tutor and as a student as well. Where were the sort of key giveaways in this that I can transpire all my knowledge over to you that is going to help that when you see another question come up, you're going to pick up on this straight away. So we've got to head straight to the actual information here. So I'm just going to walk and talk you through, jot down any keynotes that I'm talking about on here. I've only underlined the keywords and other things that stood out to me as well as good exam tips. So Hammett Co own and operate. Okay, so there's no other actual implications in the actual operations of the business. A small chain of 4 luxury vacation resorts. So it's not just one where they're all sort of not reliant upon one actual location, more sort of diversified in terms of it, if you have to talk about that, or as another reflective point. All 4 resorts are located on islands that enjoy a hot sunny climate for 9 months of the year. Okay, well, seasonality would be a good keyword to get down there because, well, what happens in the other 3 months as a result? Each resort has gourmet restaurants, water sports and spa facilities, as well as sun terraces and pools. Well, sounds like my ideal holiday, but alas, it will be more YouTube videos for me. But come on, focus, James, focus. Let's keep going through it. Hammett Co's management currently focus on 2 distinct stakeholder groups. So these are people who are interested in how the actual, or people or organizations or users should I say, that are interested in how the business operates. And we've got the first one down there as shareholders, so the equity holders who want to return, and the customers who actually go to the actual luxury vacation resorts and actually spend the money there. And we have two objectives. So we've already seen this in the requirements. We've got to be referring to these. This is critical. It's even that critical, I've highlighted it in yellow as well. And I've put, we must refer to these in our answer. If you fail to refer to these two key areas, just wave goodbye to marks on this, I'm afraid. But you'd be so surprised. If you have a look at the external examiner's report on ACCA's website, students still fail to refer back to the objectives. So make sure you get that jotted down. But then you've got to ask yourself, well, what are the objectives? Well, to make a profit long term, so key things, these you've got to retain in your mind, and to create customer loyalty. Okay? So hence shareholders and customers. So let's keep scrolling down on here. So we've got on here all operational non-management staff. So it sounded to me like on there they've got sort of two types. They've got management and non-management. Maybe that's something we can actually refer to in our discussion points on here. So the non-management staff at the resorts receive comprehensive training and are employed in secure long-term contracts, which is unusual in this industry. Okay, so if I'm thinking long-term contracts, they're actually sort of nailed down in terms of it. Well, would you not agree that that is a fixed cost that they're going to be having to pay each month? Okay, so try and read between the lines as to what the actual marker is trying to get you to understand in the requirement. The next thing as we go through down here is we have guests. Okay, so that relates to customers. So just a different word for customers, but that relates back to our objectives. So there'll be information in here that we need to take in that we can actually use. Refer back to the scenario. So guests who visit the resorts pay one upfront fee. Okay, so we're understanding the mechanics of how the business works. And then enjoy unlimited food, drink and use of the resort facilities. Well, aren't they very lucky in terms of it? When a guest arrives at a resort, they are personally greeted by a concierge. Very nice, gosh. Offered a drink. Oh, very nice. And cold towel whilst their luggage is transferred to their luxury room. Wow. It just sounds like my last holiday in every way but that sentence. All rooms are scrupulously clean, so in other words immaculate, and contain complimentary drinks, snacks, toiletries, bathrobes and slippers. In other words, high-end luxury, premium products, and the type of clientele who are just willing to pay excess money to receive the service. The rooms are all equipped with appliances which Hammock Co's management believe, so I underlined that. I went, well, hang on, that's what the management believe. What do the actual customers think? So that was another trigger within here to say, something doesn't quite sound right with that comment, and I can use it to my advantage later on when I get to the actual answers. That guests during their stay, including satellite television, coffee maker, refrigerator, and hairdryer. To which I'm thinking there, well, yes, they are nice things to have in a room in terms of it, but are they actually at the same level of the luxury aspects that maybe the customers expect? We'll have to keep reading on. In terms of this, if a guest requests something that is not available, okay, so bespoke or sort of one-off that we're looking at here in the room, a call to the reception ensures that it arrives within 10 minutes. Wow, interesting. That is, in terms of, well, think about something obscure that a customer may want. So they're going to go and source it and get it to the customer within 10 minutes. Interesting one. But we're now coming on to, well, we've got an extract here from Hammock Co's management accounting data. So whenever you get data on here, before you even start to look at the figures, good exam tip here, and I'll move my mouse, it's easier. It's a case of always look at the top. What are the titles straight away? And as you can see from this little dotted arrow, working out which year it is going from. So you got 2006 to 2007, but we're going right to left. The key thing here is that I see so many students get it mixed up the wrong way round, and if you analyse the figures the wrong way round, well, I'm afraid that's 0 marks in terms of it. So a little technique there, make sure we get it jotted down or have a reminder there to actually get into your practice in terms of what are we actually looking for. The next thing here is, well, what do those titles actually mean? Because we've got actual figures and budgeted figures. Also, different years and also on the end, competitor lounges. So we've got competitor information, our actual information, and budgeted information for different years. So make sure we understand what we're referring to in our points and being direct with the figures. Then we come on to the other side. So before we even look at the figures, so we've got average number of guests per week, lovely, average revenue, lovely, staff costs. So I'm automatically thinking now, hang on, I've seen in the objectives up above that we've got to be thinking about profitability. So in terms of actual sales or revenue, minus our variable cost is going to give us our contribution per unit. So I'm thinking now already, can I relate a point to contribution per unit or contribution overall? Then we've got staff costs, so we've got maintenance and service, lovely on there. How much we've got on repairs, operational staff to guest in terms of ratio. So this is again where you're thinking, can I get into a point the competitors' figures versus our figures, and to show that we are better or worse. That is what the actual external examiner is wanting from you here. I can sense it. But ratio of operational staff to guests. So this is actually being aware of that management to non-management, as we talked about earlier. And also we've got market share and average rooms available per week with some caveats at the bottom as well. So loads of different points that, as long as you take these aspects, relate it back to the requirement, which we'll come on to in the answer briefly, that is where the added value and the marks are. But this is what I think about when I go through a question like this, and I'm going to come on to some of the notes on here as well. So coming on to the actual other points at the bottom, we've got the actual 2007 figures are based on the year-to-date figures 10 weeks. So we've only had 10 weeks worth of figures, and they've tried to actually base it on a full year. So it's a case of, well, hang on, there's a bit of dodginess in terms of that. What are these figures actually based on, and how reliable are they? Because are those 10 weeks based on that 3 months when we don't have any customers in, or are they all based in our seasonal area where we have that 9 months where we've got loads of customers in? So how reliable is that information? Good talking point as well. This is what it comes from. So secondly on there, we've got the rooms are designed for double occupancy as well. Well, okay, what happens if you only got one occupancy, or what happens if there are different areas of rooms? Maybe we can link that into it, but there's more information below. Will it link into that as well? And then finally on here we've got note, general inflation is 2% higher in 2007 compared to 2006. And when I read that, the alarm bells have got to go ringing to say, well, have we got figures from 2006? Yes. Have we got figures from 2007? Yes. Okay, well, shall we test some figures to say, well, do they actually match what they're saying in terms of the note? So the actual figures, how do they compare to the budget figures or the actual figures? And hence this is where you can see on the side here, I don't need to point with my finger, but I'll point with the mouse over here, where I just simply put in my calculator, and you could put this in your workings as well, right at the top for the marker to see that you've considered the 2% increase based on the 2006 figures, multiplied it by 2%. So if you multiply it by 1.02, that is a 2% increase, because 0.02 is 2%. You put 1 on there, so it increases. And look at the figures on there, because the question you've got to ask yourself now is, do we currently have the correct figures based on that note? Well, for some we do, and for some we don't. So let me take you through from the top. So the 1940 is the actual figure for the number of guests. So then, based on that, in terms of sort of inflation, in terms of, well, can we actually check that in terms of, well, maybe we can link it to the revenue, all these different aspects, because they will interlink. Well, based on that, it doesn't actually link into it, because what we would have been expecting was 1,978. But we've got 1960 here. You can actually do this calculation as well for the average revenue on here. I was rushing. It's Sunday afternoon when I'm recording this, but I wanted to make sure you got the video out. The other thing was, you could have just mentioned the other 3 on the side. They were my main 3 that I went to. I thought of it just at the end. But putting inflation onto guests, I think you can get away with it, but you'd have to calculate the revenue as well, I'll be honest. So check it out, pop it in, do your 2%, add it to your actual answers. But coming on to these ones here, the 470588. So again, I'm taking the 2006 figures as we were instructed, multiplying it by that 2%, and look at this. The actual figures for 2007, it matched, so my 479,999.76 is pretty much bang on to the 2007. Same for the service cost. However, look at the star on there. So we've got the average weekly spend in terms of repairs. I'd be expecting that to be 200,000 for it, for the actual amounts, but we've got 160,000 on there, so the costs are a lot lower. Yes, we've got it in the budget, but hang on, well, what's going on there? Something doesn't quite sound right in terms of the actual amount. So we can justify it being correct, and we can justify an area where it could be corrected as well. So really key points there. You see the percentage and think, well, how can I apply that to the figures I'm given? Let's keep going, because again, I don't want to overdo it in terms of it here, but I'm just walking and talking you through as to what I think about when I read these external questions through from my experience. So we've come on to, and again, don't miss this out. Notice how it was on the next page, so make sure you get in all the information. But we've got extracts from a trip event, an influential online customer forum. Lovely stuff. Keyword on the side there, another stakeholder as well. They're interested in how the business is operating. So let's read it through, and as you can see on the side there, these are my little trigger words as to when I'm going through the actual question analysis. I might need to refer back to when I'm going through my answer. What did that mean? What did that mean? Well, if I remember facilities in terms of it, menu, processes, costs, these are my trigger words I can then go and talk about in more detail. And then maybe you could put a tick or an X as to say, was it a good point or a bad point? Really good technique when you're reviewing these things. So, I love Hammocks Co. Lovely stuff. The service and attention to detail is exemplary. The results are always pristine. Fantastic. Customer service, objective 1, lovely stuff. Now, look what I've underlined in here. These are the trigger sort of words or phrases that flips the point where it says, yes, that was a good point. However, this is where the negative comes into it that you can discuss. Their competitor, Loungers, has full body dryers, ionized water taps, and a range of professional hair care equipment in all their rooms. So we've got a positive point and a negative point in terms of facilities in the hotels. Next one on there, our third time back to Hammocks Co. This year, and we continue to be amazed by the wonderful service. Tick, good point. One thing though is, right, that flip again, the menus don't seem to have changed much from one visit to the next. So these, think about the customers, who they are, their tastes and their habits. They'll probably want to go there, try something new. So you've got to think menus, you've got to think special boards, you've got to think change as well, and variety I'd have down for that. All really good points from a business perspective. Next on there we booked Hammocks Co. on the spur of the moment, as you do, but then found that we couldn't get a flight. Book a hotel but not got the flight. Not the way I'd go about it, but we called Hammocks Co.'s administrative centre to change our booking to another resort. Fair play, sounds like what you should do, where we could get a flight to, and were told that it would be no problem. Okay, fantastic, good point. Trigger word again. However, it took more than 2 calls and 3 emails to get confirmation, then our credit card was charged twice in error. Bad processes, costs going up on here. Of course, it was eventually all resolved, so the customers have faith in this. That's good. The incorrect charge was refunded. Nice, we're not going to double charge them. A complimentary limousine was provided. Okay, costs are going up for us as a business right now. To and from the airport, and we received the most amazing customer service at the resort, but it was frustrating at the time. So this links into key aspects like word of mouth, reviewing, and repeat business as well. These are the key things to jot down that you could relate to in your narrative answer. We're coming on to that in a second. Let's go through the last paragraph. When I made my booking, I was assured that my bed would be made with the special anti-allergenic bedding which I need for a good night's sleep, and that my favourite blend of tea would be available. So again, type of service, pristine, high-end, premium service. when I arrived, neither of these requirements were met. Okay, so that's the flip side again to it. To be fair to Hammock's Co, though, everything was in order 2 hours later when I went to bed. Wow, okay, so that is operationally, but it sounds like whatever the issue, we seem to resolve it really quickly as well. So there are issues, but when they do arise, we resolve it very quickly on there. So that nicely takes us through the actual question analysis on there. We're now going to start to actually go through the requirements. So if you haven't had an attempt already, pause the video, have a go, do it to time as I said, and then we'll go through the answer as you have now. Okay, so the answers again are in the link to the description to this video. As I said before, there is another video on my channel that you can go through all of this as well. I've done the donkey work for you, but this is the Hammock's Co question that we're going to be going through here. And as before, we've got, look at this, we've got loads of writing on here. Gosh, James, how are you going to make this easy for me? Oh, how is this going to be fun? Would I let you down? Don't be silly. Come on. Look, this looks actually appealing now. Shall I make it a bit bigger? Shall I make it a bit bigger? Oh, there you go. Rock and roll. Oh, I can see it even better now. Well, I'm at the bottom, but the important stuff is at the top. So if you need to take a photo of it, get a screenshot, I really don't mind. This is going to help you out. What I thought when I was going through this question, and now the answer analysis. This is where we're going to add value in our answers to get us over that 50 mark. Well, remember, for the first one, it was for 8 marks, so it had to be split 4 and 4. And before we get into the actual answer, look how they've laid out the answer on here. To make a profit long term, the first objective, and then to create customer loyalty. So if you picked up on those 2 objectives, as we said in the question analysis, you've already got the format to say, well, I know the area, I'm going to now find my 4 marks in that area as well. So first of all, when you go to these things, you've got to think, well, to make a profit long term, state the obvious in terms of if you're going to make a profit, revenue's got to go up and then costs have got to go down. So the first sentence on here, in order to make profit, revenues need to be higher long term than the costs. Simply state it. I reckon that would have been half a mark on that. Nice and easy. But how many students would have thrown away that little half a mark, or just to sort of settle down into the question? I think they'd have got a bit too out there. But now we need to go into a lot more detail and actually consider the notes that we had on there. So the weekly revenue per guest is $2,000 in the 2007 budget. The 2007 actual results and the 2006 actual results, which are not in line with inflation. So as we touched on earlier, in terms of the actual figures, this means that the revenue per guest is falling in real terms. So in essence, what that means is that we haven't accounted for inflation going up by 2%. So go back to the question analysis, check them off to see what we're doing in terms of have we accounted for it, like I said. But what it means by real terms is that every year the actual value of currency goes down because of factors like inflation, opportunity cost and risk. So in real terms, that £2,000 that was £2,000 a year ago is not the same £2,000 today. The question that I'd have to ask you in terms of this, it relates to, if you want to do a bit of research on it, it's the time value of money. I'd have to ask you the question of, would you like £2,000 today or in a year's time? And you must always say today, because if you left that money for a year's time, inflation would have gone up by 2% in this case, and it would have devalued the actual currency. That's what it's referring to in terms of real terms. So with that, that's looking at the actual revenue, first aspect on there. Now you're going to say, well, what impact is on the costs? And this relates back into our calculations. However, all staff costs have been increased by 2% as we calculated in our question analysis, which is increased by 2% caused by the inflation. So the revenue hasn't been adjusted, but the actual costs have been adjusted. We're linking it back to the scenario because overall, what does this mean? Now you've got to say, link it back to the objective in terms of profit. So overall, this means that profit per guest, based on the limited figures available, is falling. The reason for that is because our revenue is not going up as much, but our costs are going up. That was the key thing here. But the key note to get down, link it back to the objective and the scenario and the figures that you've worked out. The repair costs allowing for inflation have been set at the same level since 2006, and the actual for 2007 appears to be better than budget. But as repairs are likely to be incurred on an ad hoc basis, this, and this was the key bit I got down here, does not necessarily indicate an improvement. So actually for 2007 it was a bit lower. So an ad hoc basis literally means it's a case of, well, when it needs to be done, it's because they need to do it at that time. So in regards to repairs, if a repair needs to be done, you do it on an ad hoc basis that, well, the repair needs to be done, so we need to do the repair on it. That's where it's coming from here. And for 2006, the repair costs are higher than the competitors, but it is difficult to compare because Hammocks Co. have more rooms, so we're not comparing like for like. Yes, so think about it, we're not comparing apples and apples. We're sort of comparing apples and oranges here because the two different types of hotel, yes, they are functioning in terms of an apple's a fruit and an orange is a fruit, but it's a case of they're not the same type of hotel in terms of it. On a repair by room basis scale though, Hammocks Co are slightly lower cost at $163 per room compared to the competitors $164 per room. So slightly more you can get away with it there, but in terms of the actual type of hotel, in terms of the levels of repairs, you can't make that comparison, but you've got to justify that in your answer. If you think they actually are comparable and you can justify it from the information, pop it down, but it has to be justified. That's the key thing. Let's keep it going then in terms of this. So we're still on the first bit for the 4 marks, but notice the detail we're having to go into already. This is one of the key areas where students unfortunately fail on this sort of examination because they don't link in other points, especially on this paragraph here. So due to the secure long-term contracts which Hammocks Co offer its staff, so we picked up on this in the question analysis, staff are actually fixed costs in the management accounts. Bang on, we talked about that earlier, because if you're on a fixed term contract, the same amount month by month is deemed to be fixed as a result. This means that in order to be profitable, these costs need to be covered by the contribution per guest. What is the actual external examiner referring to here? Look at that note on the side. Contribution per unit divided by the fixed costs is equal to your break-even point. So if you can't cover those fixed costs, then that is where your break-even point is going to show you, well, are we actually going to make a loss or can we make a profit? Although there is not the data, notice how that was in the actual question requirement. So there isn't the data to actually calculate this for the contribution per guest per week, as we could try to. The high level of guest occupancy level in 2007, so budgeted and actual, is a positive indication. So in other words, from the information that we do have, is there any indication or sort of hints as to, well, are we in a better or worse position? Because Hammocks' occupancy level per room was 81% compared to the competitors of 77%, so based on the double occupancy. So this indicates to us that we are performing and actually getting a better quantity than our competitors. So in other words, we didn't have all the information, but based on the information that we do have, that assumption in terms of meeting our break-even point, covering those fixed costs, it is looking plausible or a positive indication that this could be possible as well. That's the technique, taking the actual information you're given and then applying it to the actual situation of covering those costs. That was a really key tip there. So that is the first objective analysed in terms of it. Now we've got to come on to the second one, to create customer loyalty. So take off your hat in terms of thinking about profitability. You've now got to put on a new hat and think about customer loyalty. Really key thing here. And again, same sort of process of referring back to the scenario. So what were the indicators first of all? Well, there are a number of indicators to show that Hammocks Co have created a loyal customer base. So that's saying positive. That also indicates to me as a reader of this, and from a marking perspective, there are going to be negatives in this. But let's go through it nice and easy. So firstly, compared to their main competitor, Wright, Hammocks Co receive more revenue, charge a higher price per guest per week, and have better occupancy rates. This indicates good customer satisfaction. So first of all, linking back to the objective was the key thing here, customer loyalty, customer satisfaction, but state the point, and is it going to have a positive or negative impact on it as well. Next one on here we have, so secondly, the ratio of staff to guest. So this is how much attention the actual staff, this will be the non-management on here, is higher than the competition. So we are at 1.5 compared to 1.3 in 2006. Actually in 2007 are slightly higher due to low occupancy rate than budgeted and the fact that staff numbers are fixed. So if staff are completely fixed, that's where it's coming from here, as this is a seasonal business. That's linking to where, if I was going to be a bit more pedantic, I'd say refer to the 9 months that are positive versus the 3 months where the drop-off is because of the actual weather and the seasonality. And they've put on here, as this is a seasonal business, it may be simply be a blip in terms of it. So yeah, so it goes positive throughout the year, bit of a blip, but then it will come back as well later on into it. In terms of the actual occupancy rates, because it was only based on those sort of 10 weeks, wasn't it, from the actual information. Let me roll it down a bit more so we can see this a bit better. So what have we got on here? Well, finally on here we've got to be saying, as my note says on the side there, well, what went well and what didn't go so well. So finally the comments on trip events, and not forgetting all of that analysis in the question that we went through. Trip event are positive about the level of service and standard of cleanliness and maintenance. Big tick, we picked up on that. However, it should be noted that the entire customer experience is not all positive. Complaints like the administrative errors, so these relate to those notes on the side that we're going to be picking up on now. You could have gone into more detail here. And unchanging menus could be a warning sign of possible erosion of, again, link it back to the objective, customer loyalty. Nice. So pick up on the point, say is it good or bad, what has happened based on the scenario, and then finally the last nail in the coffin, customer loyalty, good or bad. That was the key thing here. If you fail to apply that process, you'd be really limited to maybe, for each of the two sections, probably 2 out of 4 if you didn't really go into much detail on it. Now, relating more back to sort of performance management now. So we've got a balanced scorecard approach to performance management. Now, this was really cheeky because this is one of the questions where in the external examiner's report, students tended to get 0 on this, okay, or 1. But I've put on the side there words used from the requirement, and I'm just going to jink it over back on here as to look on here. So explain 2 advantages of Hammock Co's using the balanced scorecard approach to performance management. Now look at the answer. A balanced scorecard approach to performance management is, okay, and why is it important? Take the words from the requirement, get them down in your answer to kick yourself off and get the ball rolling. Because it will provide management with a set of information, key thing there, which covers all relevant areas of business performance. At present, Hammock Co consider performance from a financial and customer perspective. So get a note down on that. That is referring to the 2 objectives at the top. These perspectives are important. Well, yes, profitability, customer service are mega important, but they do not allow for a wide enough consideration of all other factors. So what they're saying is, yes, your 2 objectives are good, but in terms of a balanced scorecard approach for performance management, you've got to be considering so many more wider areas on here. And this is where it links into that should be considered in this business. So referring back to things that haven't been actually identified, and identify the area and what it's going to impact on the business, but it can't be one of the 2. So introducing the balanced scorecard will keep it simple for yourself, ensure that all internal systems and processes, so get that jotted down, these are the key areas as to picture how the business is operating. That is the main fundamental thing here with these bullet points. Picture the business, what you could implement if you were a financial accountant here. So to support the customer and financial objectives, for example, decision making, there is little point in buying a new IT system, so apply it to the scenario again. What would you do in their situation? Does not either improve customer experience or reduce processing costs. So in other words, if you're going to put something into the business, it's got to be effective, otherwise what is the point? I know. But looking on to point 2 now, so encouraging full integration between all departments. One would assume that was already there, but the world of business is a precarious place. Errors in invoicing or sending specific requirements, so linking back to where were the defaults that we picked up on in the scenario. Our system or internal process errors. So question analysis, refer back to it. If you've got good notes on the side there, this is where you apply that ammunition. While a customer may not choose a holiday resort for its excellent administration, yes, I don't go on holiday to admire their systems, they may refuse to use the company again. So this is referrals and actual word of mouth if they receive poor service as a result. So if you have hassle and you have aggro and you just don't feel like it's at ease, then why would you go again? What's the point? Thus, neglecting one aspect of the scorecard can impact on customer satisfaction and longer-term financial performance. So actually, they've talked about there what would be the impact on those other 2 objectives. But I was quite impressed with this final paragraph, so this is really key to get this jotted down because they've used it in this question, but it links to other performance management questions I've seen from the external examiner. So we've got make sure important elements are keyword, assessed, expected performance levels are quantified and or qualified. So this is how we're actually going to be, means by the performance can be measured, explained, compared, control action can be taken. The errors that occur, and we're going on to the next page now, at Hammocks Co. are spoiling the company's reputation, but there is no evidence that any action has been taken. There are some really key words there that get that jotted down on a separate piece of paper for performance management. If you apply those terms in other areas as well, that is the correct language for this exam paper. But in terms of 2 good points on there, that would have actually got you your 3 marks. That was the key thing here. But notice the level of detail, how it was laid out, and using the words from the requirement. That was really key here. Now, coming on to part B. What have we got on here? Well, we were given indications in the actual question what they wanted us to refer to. But the sort of exam technique on here is, we've got to actually say, what is the area that we're referring to? So hence I've highlighted them in yellow as what the external examiner had down. Then you've got to say, state the goal. So this is referring to our question analysis and what we actually thought could be a goal to improve. And then how can this be measured? This is why that previous paragraph is so key in terms of good keywords, because you could have actually applied them going on further down. But that's the key technique. Look back at the question analysis and you'll see how it's going to be implemented now. So let me roll it through for you. So first of all, look at the internal business process on here. So state that goal, like it said in the requirement, don't miss out on it. In other words, what didn't we do very well at? So apply your knowledge to the business scenario along with that question analysis. So to have an effective and efficient administration, we know there are errors there. So the feedback from Trip Event indicates that only guess complaints relate to administrative issues prior, this is where, in terms of the actual customer experience or the customer engagement, should we say, from their process of from the first time when they actually consider going on holiday with us to actually they've been to the resort, they've enjoyed the holiday, and then they've gone home. Where is the issue? Well, this is where it's prior to arrival, so before we've actually seen them face to face. And not operational issues, so actually physically on the actual hotel. In fact, the actions of the resort staff with the speedy resolution, so we picked up on this earlier on, of bedding, so referring back to that scenario, and the organising of complementary transfers. Yes, it's a cost, but it was, it sort of diverted trouble on here. So the actual measures need to be focused on the weaker areas, which are the administration. So pick up on what was positive, what was weak, and then target the weak areas, and at what point in the business does that need to be rectified in terms of it. So that's the actual goal of the administration, how we can improve it, but how now are we going to measure it? So think about how can we quantify this and actually measure it as well. So we've got the number of times that a guest request is not received at a resort prior to their arrival / number of requests made. So if the requests by the guests are going down and down and down, well, our processes must be going up and up and up in terms of quality. This will measure the number of times the guest experience is not seamless from booking to arrival. So at how easy is it for the guest to actually book, come and enjoy their stay, and then say marvellous things about us. The next one in terms of the actual measurement that we had on here provided by the external examiner was the average number of corrections to booking due to an administrative error. So again, if we're trying to reduce the errors down, we can actually quantify that, how many errors were there, and hopefully there'll be a downward trend over time as to improvements that can be made, because the measures, this measures the inefficient use of staff time and potential increased customer frustration. Think about it from your perspective. If you're going on holiday and you're trying to deal with an operator and they've got your card details wrong, they've not put in the right dates, they're not very helpful in terms of things, you have to ask yourself the question, would you go there again? But also ask yourself the question, if you work there and you're in charge of working there and a financial controller, for example, how would you try and correct that? This is the key thing what we're referring to here. So the next thing we have on here are innovation and learning. So that's the topic area in terms of it. Now we've got to state the goal as to where we can actually be improving. So question analysis, where did we actually need some improvement? Well, matching the leading competitors' actual facilities. There was a gap that was mentioned in terms of it, because we had the comment on the trip event shows that even loyal customers are noticing that rivals are including more innovative facilities in their resorts. So that's our rivals, the competitor, and this is us. That is the gap in terms of it. Although the true strength of Hammocks Co lies in the quality of service, so that was how respondent they are to anything that crops up, it's a case of here, well, from the quality of service, it is important that the facilities and appliances and services offerings are up to date to be comparably favourable to its rivals, because that could be the sort of unique selling point, or the sort of differentiator, should I say, that a customer would go, well, they've got what I want, so I'm going to go there. They're very nice, but they don't have all the things I want, and that's the gap you need to plug. But again, how do we actually measure and update to make that comparability more favourable for us? Well, we can actually measure the number of in-room appliances offered by our rivals, but not by Hammocks Co. So nice easy comparison. Putting it simply, what have they got? What have we got? And then what's the difference in terms of it? More keywords here about, again, how we measure it. So the measure will ensure that Hammocks Co consider what is needed within the guest rooms by comparing the actual external factors. Exactly, a bit of repeated there in terms of it sort of links on. But secondly on there, the number of new items offered on the menu each month. So that's referring to the actual food and beverages, and well, the actual restaurant on there, as to, well, the complaint was it was the same that month, the same that trip, the same that trip. Well, they're wanting new and innovative ideas. That is another unique selling point for them to go and visit your business, Hammocks Co, versus the competitor. So linking it on to the final aspect on here, so we've got the actual, this should ensure that the chefs consider, so again, relate it back to the business scenario, who is actually in charge, what element of the business would need to actually implement or consider these latest trends of fine dining. What do the customers want? You could have noted down here tastes and preferences, what are their sort of values as well, other keywords that you could get down that would definitely add value to your actual response on this. And do not ever appear stagnant from the point of view of the customer. So the customer, the paying customer, I'd have on there, wants new and innovative things on different things and another reason to go back. That is the key element here. Plus, any other valid points that you related back to the scenario, that can be measured. Key thing on there is justify it, apply it, and the external examiner will always look into it to give you credit. And that is how you analyse a performance management F5 external examiner's report in terms of the actual question analysis on there as well. But let's head back to the main screen now. I'm going to have a breather, but 3, 2, 1. Well, nada. What about that? I hope you enjoyed that video, going through an actual past paper question, start to finish, question and answer. I'd be going through this a couple of times to make sure you're really confident with the whole process and what my thoughts are on it. I've also done another video on question or section 1 for it as well, so make sure you go check that out. I'll put it in the description below. If you have enjoyed today's video, give it a massive thumbs up, leave any comments below as well, and feel free to subscribe so you get access to all of my new videos that I put out. I've also put in the description below any books I'd recommend that you purchase to actually pass this examination based on my recommendations, and they're all up to date as well. Well, finally, as ever, best of luck with your upcoming F5 and Performance ACCA examination. You've got this. Put these practices into play and you'll be perfectly fine. But as always on that bombshell, I'll see you next time. Cheers.